Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel, where we explore fascinating curiosities and deep analyses about the Lord of the Rings and the vast world of Middle-earth. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. It helps me continue this project and build a better future for my son. Thank you for your support. Today, we begin a documentary-style analysis that uncovers the origins, rise, and ultimate fall of Smaug, the most feared dragon of the Third Age. We'll trace his story from the ancient wars of the dwarves to his reign of terror over Erebor and Lake Town, preparing the groundwork for everything that unfolds later in the tale. Before we start, a quick note. All images shown in this video were generated by AI to avoid any copyright issues. Because of that, you may notice small inconsistencies between what is narrated and what appears on screen. This is normal and part of the creative process behind these visual reconstructions. With that said, let's dive into the shadowy legacy of Smaug and explore how one creature shaped the fate of entire kingdoms. After the fall of Morgoth at the end of the First Age, many of his dreadful creations remained scattered across Middle-earth. Among them were the surviving dragons, and even a lingering Balrog. This lingering terror becomes the starting point of Smaug's wider story, for long before the dragon ever reached Erebor, the forces of darkness had already shaped the fate of the dwarves. In 1980 of the Third Age, the Balrog is awakened beneath Moria by the dwarves of Durin's folk, leading to the death of King Durin VI and the eventual abandonment of Khazad-dûm. Their exile sets off a chain of movements that will ultimately influence where dragons and dwarves collide. A group of Durin's folk, led by King Thrain I, establishes Erebor in 1999. Yet most of the clan chooses the Grey Mountains to the northwest as their home. It's here that we find one of the rare named dragons of this age, Scatha the Worm. In 2000, Scatha is slain by Fram of the Eotheod after stealing treasure from the dwarves. The tale hints at the rising danger in the northern ranges, dragons multiplying and growing bolder as the centuries roll on. More than 200 years later, in 2210, King Thorin I abandons Erebor to join his kin in the Grey Mountains. For a time, they live in relative peace. But by 2570, the dragons of the north have become a formidable force. Their assaults begin what will be remembered as the War of the Dwarves and Dragons, a brutal conflict lasting nearly 2 decades. Despite the dwarves' renowned resilience, tragedy strikes in 2589 when a Coldrake attacks the halls of King Dainai, killing both him and his son Fror. This devastating loss forces Durin's folk to abandon the Grey Mountains entirely. With Dainai dead, the kingship passes to Thror, grandfather of Thorin Oakenshield. The dwarves scatter, some returning to Erebor, others settling in the Iron Hills, while the shadow of the dragons continues to loom, setting the stage for Smaug's eventual rise. With the War of the Dwarves and Dragons finally ended, the scattered remnants of Durin's folk sought stability wherever they could. Thror, now king after the death of Dainai, led his people back to the Lonely Mountain, restoring Erebor as their home. His younger brother Gror chose a different path, guiding another branch of their kin to the Iron Hills, where they established a sturdy settlement that would later produce the famed Dane Two Ironfoot. For a time, peace returned, though the scars of the Grey Mountains lingered in memory. Yet even now, there is no certainty that Smaug was involved in the earlier conflict. Both Smaug and Gandalf later describe him as young when he arrived at Erebor in 2770, but old and strong when Bilbo met him in 2941. This suggests he may have been too young to participate in the war, or perhaps not even born by its end in 2589. Still, the growing threat of dragons in the north created an uneasy backdrop for the dwarves' return to their ancestral mountain. Erebor flourished for roughly 180 years. Wealth poured from its mines, and the kingdom under the mountain rose to a prosperity unmatched since the First Age. But such abundance could not remain unnoticed. News of the treasure hoard reached many ears, including those of Smaug, the greatest dragon of the Third Age. Drawn by both hunger and greed, he descended upon Erebor in 2770 with the force of a hurricane. He first landed atop the mountain, then swept downward, igniting the woods around Erebor. Dwarven warriors who rushed through the Great Gate to defend their home were instantly killed. Turning next to Dale, Smaug slew its warriors and Lord Girion himself, scattering the survivors. Returning to the mountain, he broke through the front gate and seized Erebor's treasure. King Thror and Thrain too escaped through the secret passage, while Thorin, only 24 at the time, managed to evade the chaos outside. Smaug claimed the mountain, and the surrounding land soon became known as the Desolation of Smaug. Driven once more from their home, Durin's folk fell into long years of exile. The once thriving region surrounding Erebor and Dale became known as the Desolation of Smaug, a scorched wasteland marked by ash, ruin, and the lingering fear of the dragon who now ruled the mountain. Thorin and the survivors wandered, eventually making their way to Dunland, where they lived for a time before being drawn into the war of the dwarves and orcs. That conflict culminated in the Battle of Azanulbazar in 2799, a grim but defining moment for their people. 3 years later, in 2802, Thrain, now king after the passing of Thror, led his followers to the Blue Mountains west of the Shire. There, Durin's folk rebuilt their lives yet again, forging a modest but stable existence. Meanwhile, Smaug remained unchallenged in Erebor. For over 170 years, he brooded upon the treasure hoard, leaving the mountain only occasionally to hunt. It is said he would fly by night through the Great Gate, descending upon Dale to seize people, especially maidens, to eat until the city was abandoned and ruined. During this long period of brooding, Smaug's treasure became afflicted with what came to be known as dragon sickness. This mysterious condition seems to fall upon gold that a dragon has long lain upon, intensifying greed and possessiveness in those who come near it. A famous example from earlier history describes Fram of the Eotheid refusing to return the treasure he won from slaying Skada, a refusal that likely cost him his life at the hands of the dwarves. Such stories underline the corrupting influence dragons leave behind. Smaug remained hidden in his lair until October of 2941, when Bilbo Baggins, sent by Thorin and his company, crept into the depths of Erebor. After Bilbo stole a single cup from the hoard on October 22nd, Smaug immediately sensed the loss. Dragons might not use their wealth, but they know it to the last ounce, especially after centuries of brooding. Enraged, Smaug emerged from his chamber, searching the mountainside for the thief, and though he failed to find Bilbo, he discovered and devoured the company's ponies, setting the stage for their fateful confrontation. The next day, Bilbo returned to Smaug's lair, gathering what courage he could for a second encounter. What followed was their iconic exchange, riddling, guarded, and dangerous. Smaug attempted to lure Bilbo closer, hoping to catch him off guard, but Bilbo, armed with fragments of dragon lore, kept his distance. "No, thank you, O Smaug the Tremendous," he replied, flattering the dragon while carefully revealing nothing truthful about himself or his companions. Smaug, both flattered and suspicious, pressed him for answers, trying to uncover his origins and purpose. Bilbo responded with a series of cryptic titles: Clue Finder, Web Cutter, Stinging Fly, Luck Wearer, Barrel Rider. Each was truthful in its own way, but obfuscated anything that might put his friends in immediate danger. This game of riddles fascinated Smaug. Dragons struggle to resist such talk, especially when it comes from someone bold enough to stand before them. Yet Smaug's mind worked relentlessly beneath the surface. Though he could not identify Bilbo's scent, the smell of dwarves clung unmistakably to him. Smaug soon concluded that the intruder must be aided by the men of Lake Town, whom he had not visited in ages. Believing them responsible for this newfound threat, he grew furious. After boasting of his own unmatched power, his armor like shields, his claws like spears, his breath death, he warned Bilbo that dwarves were treacherous companions who would surely abandon him when convenient. The dragon also mocked their quest for revenge, insisting there were none alive who could challenge him. While Smaug spoke, Bilbo made a crucial observation. A bare spot on the dragon's left breast, where the gems embedded in his armor did not fully cover the flesh. It was a small weakness, but a weakness all the same. Smaug, however, sensed he had revealed too much and grew enraged. Certain that Lake Town had a hand in this intrusion, he resolved to punish its people and remind the world who the true king under the mountain was. With a roar and a surge of fire, Smaug erupted from the mountain and flew south toward the lake, intent on destruction. Smaug streaked through the night sky, avoiding the surface of the lake so his fire would not be quenched. With a roar that echoed across the waters, he descended upon Lake Town and unleashed his fury. Flames poured from his jaws, engulfing wooden buildings and sending people fleeing in terror. The great house collapsed beneath a single sweep of Smaug's mighty tail, and chaos consumed the town as fire spread from pier to pier. During the destruction, a small thrush flew urgently to Bard the bowman. This bird had overheard Bilbo speaking to the dwarves about the bare patch on Smaug's left breast, a vital weakness in the dragon's gem-encrusted armor. Bard, already one of the few who still stood against the devastation, listened intently as the thrush relayed the message. In that moment, he understood that the fate of Lake Town rested on his next shot. Bard nocked his last arrow, the famed black arrow that had been passed down through generations of his family. As Smaug circled overhead, preparing to strike again, Bard waited for the perfect moment. When the dragon exposed the vulnerable spot, Bard loosed the arrow with all his strength. It flew straight and true, striking the gap in Smaug's armor. The dragon screamed, spiraling downward as the fire in his chest erupted outward. Smaug crashed into the lake, destroying much of Esgaroth in his fall. Though Smaug was dead, his legacy continued to echo across the land. The corrupted treasure he had brooded upon for centuries would still claim more victims. Thorin, consumed by dragon sickness, refused to share the wealth with Bard or aid the people devastated by Smaug's attack. And even after the events of the quest, the master of Lake Town succumbed to greed as well. Given gold by King Dain to rebuild the town, he instead fled into the waste, where he ultimately died of starvation. Smaug's bones remained visible at the site of old Lake Town, gleaming with the jewels that had once armored his belly. Yet no one dared approach them, for even in death, the memory of the dragon instilled fear in all who saw him. While Smaug's death marked the end of the greatest dragon of the Third Age, the wider question of dragons in Middle-earth did not end with him. Though no other dragons are named or described in detail after Smaug's fall, there are hints that others may still exist. Gandalf himself later suggests that dragons remain in the world, though none so mighty as Calagon the Black or Glorung, whose deeds shaped the First Age. These remarks leave open the possibility that surviving drakes lingered in remote or desolate regions, far from the concerns of men, dwarves, and hobbits. Even so, Smaug's passing had profound effects on the lands around Erebor. With the dragon gone, trade and settlement gradually returned. Dale would one day rise again under Bard's line, while the lonely mountain regained its rightful place as the seat of Durin's folk under King Dain to Ironfoot. The scars left by Smaug, burned lands, shattered homes, and the lingering fear of dragonfire remained part of the region's memory, yet hope began to reemerge. The tale of Smaug also served as a reminder of the destructive influence of dragon sickness. The treasure he brooded upon for so long continued to twist hearts, driving Thorin to paranoia and possessiveness during the quest. Even after the conflict ended, the master of Lake Town succumbed to greed and met his end in the wilderness. Such moments showed how deeply the shadow of a dragon could extend, even beyond its lifetime. As for the dragons of earlier ages, Calagon, Glorung, and others of Morgoth's brood, their legacies remain subjects of legend in future exploration. Their monstrous power and the ancient wars they waged stand apart from the deeds of Smaug, yet all are part of the greater history of Middle-earth. In the end, Smaug's story closes not only with his dramatic fall, but with the restoration of the lands he once terrorized and the rebirth of the kingdoms he sought to destroy. His legacy lingers, but life in the shadow of the lonely mountain continues onward.